Turning Red is a 2022 American animated coming-of-age comedy film produced by Pixar Animation Studios and distributed by Walt Disney Pictures. The movie was directed by Domi Sher, who became the first woman to solo direct a Pixar feature film, and it was produced by Lindsay Collins. Domi Sher had previously won an Academy Award for the Pixar short film Bao, and Turning Red carries a similar emotional and cultural depth, focusing on themes of family, identity, growing up, and the complicated relationship between mothers and daughters. The film is set in Toronto, Canada, in the year 2002, and it draws heavily from Domi Sher's own childhood experiences growing up in a Chinese-Canadian household, which gives the movie a very personal and authentic feel. The overview of the story revolves around a 13-year-old girl named Maylin Lee, who goes by the nickname May. May is confident, awkward in a charming way, and eager to please her mother, who is extremely protective and has very high expectations for her. May is also a typical teenager who loves spending time with her three best friends, dancing, and obsessing over a fictional boy band called Four Town. However, May's life takes a dramatic turn when she discovers a strange family secret. Whenever she experiences intense emotions, whether it is excitement, embarrassment, anger, or stress, she suddenly transforms into a giant red panda. This transformation is not just a random event but is tied to an ancient family blessing, which was originally meant to protect the women in her family but eventually became something they had to learn to control or seal away. In terms of plot details, the story begins with May living a balanced life between being the perfect, obedient daughter at home and being a fun, slightly rebellious teenager with her friends at school. The first time May turns into the red panda happens after a particularly stressful and emotional morning, and she wakes up to find herself covered in red fur, with the size and appearance of a giant panda. Her mother, Ming, soon realizes what has happened because this transformation is a hereditary trait passed down through generations of women in their family, originating from their ancestor Sun Yi, who made a pact with the gods many years ago to protect her family during a time of war. Over time, this gift turned into something the family considered a curse, something to be hidden and eventually removed through a special ritual performed during a red moon. As the story progresses, May struggles to control her panda transformations, especially because they are triggered by strong emotions, which makes it incredibly difficult for a teenager going through puberty and dealing with friendships, crushes, and the excitement of an upcoming concert by her favorite boy band Four Town. May eventually learns that she can control the panda to some extent, and her friends help her practice channeling her emotions to keep the transformation in check. However, things become more complicated when May realizes that she actually enjoys being the red panda, as it gives her a sense of freedom, confidence, and uniqueness that she does not feel in her everyday life under her mother's strict rules. The central conflict of the movie builds up as May's mother prepares for the ritual that will permanently remove the panda spirit from May during the red moon, which coincidentally falls on the same night as the Four Town concert that May and her friends desperately want to attend. May is torn between fulfilling her mother's wishes and following the family tradition, or staying true to herself and enjoying her newfound identity and friendships. This leads to a major emotional confrontation between May and her mother, where years of pressure, expectations, and unspoken feelings come to the surface. The climax of the film involves not just May, but also her mother and grandmother, as they all confront their own panda spirits, and their own past struggles with identity, rebellion, and family expectations. Eventually, the story reaches a heartfelt resolution where May decides to keep her panda spirit instead of getting rid of it completely, learning to embrace both sides of herself, the obedient daughter and the wild, expressive teenager. The film ends on a positive note, showing growth, acceptance, and a stronger, more honest relationship between May and her mother. Now coming to the cast of Turning Red, the lead character May Lee is voiced by Rosalie Chang, who brings a lot of energy, humor, and emotional depth to the character. May's mother, Ming Lee, is voiced by Sandra Oh, a very well-known and respected actress, who portrays the strict yet deeply loving and emotionally complicated mother extremely well. May's father, Gene Lee, is voiced by Orion Lee, and he plays a calmer, more supportive figure in contrast to Ming's intensity. May's three best friends are also important characters in the story. Miriam is voiced by Ava Morse, Priya is voiced by Matreyi Ramakrishnan, and Abby is voiced by Hyen Park. Each of these friends brings their own personality and humor to the group, and together they support May throughout her journey. The film also features other supporting characters, including May's grandmother and aunties, who play a significant role in the family's history and the panda tradition. Regarding the music, the film features original songs performed by the fictional boy band Four Town, which were actually written and produced by Billie Eilish and Phineas O'Connell, two extremely talented and famous real-life musicians. The overall score of the film was composed by Ludwig Göransson, who is known for his work on several major film projects. The combination of the original score and the catchy Four Town songs adds a lot of energy and emotional weight to the film, especially during the concert scenes. In terms of release date, Turning Red was originally intended to be released in theaters, but due to the ongoing impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on movie theaters at that time, Disney decided to release the film directly on the Disney Plus streaming platform. The film premiered on Disney Plus on March 11, 2022, making it accessible to audiences worldwide without requiring a theatrical visit. Despite this change in release strategy, the film received a lot of attention and praise for its animation quality, storytelling, humor, and the way it tackled topics that are not commonly discussed in mainstream animated films, such as puberty, periods, and generational trauma. As for the trailer, Disney and Pixar released the official trailer for Turning Red a few months before its release, and it generated a massive amount of discussion online. The trailer introduced audiences to May's everyday life, her relationship with her mother, and then revealed the surprising twist of her transforming into a giant red panda. The trailer balanced humor with emotional moments, giving viewers a good sense of the film's tone, which combines comedy, fantasy, and heartfelt family drama. The vibrant animation style, set in early 2000s Toronto, along with the unique character designs and the energetic soundtrack, made the trailer stand out and helped build excitement for the film's release. Overall, Turning Red is considered one of Pixar's more personal and culturally specific films, focusing on the experiences of a Chinese-Canadian girl navigating adolescence, family expectations, and self-identity. The film received praise for its honest portrayal of teenage emotions, its colorful and expressive animation style influenced by anime, and its strong voice performances, especially from Sandra Oh and Rosalie Chang. While some viewers found certain themes in the film to be more mature or unconventional for an animated movie, many others appreciated the film for addressing real issues that many young people, especially young girls, go through during puberty and growing up. The story's core message about embracing every part of yourself, including the messy and chaotic parts, resonated strongly with audiences of different ages and backgrounds. Turning Red opens by introducing audiences to 13-year-old May Lee, a confident, bright, and slightly awkward 8th grader living in Toronto, Canada, in the year 2002. May is shown as a straight-A student who helps her parents run a family temple dedicated to their ancestor, Sun Yi. She presents herself as the perfect daughter, someone who respects her parents, especially her mother Ming, follows the rules strictly, and tries to make her family proud at every opportunity. At the same time, May has a completely different side to her life when she is with her three best friends, Miriam, Priya, and Abby. With them, she is silly, energetic, and obsessed with a fictional boy band called Four Town, whose music and members the girls constantly talk about, dance to, and fantasize over. The story quickly establishes the tension between May's two identities, the obedient daughter persona she shows at home and the fun-loving teenager she is with her friends. Her mother Ming is shown to be extremely protective, sometimes embarrassingly so, often showing up unexpectedly at May's school or questioning her about her daily activities. Despite this, May deeply loves her mother and tries hard not to disappoint her, even suppressing parts of her personality to keep the peace at home. The major turning point of the film happens one morning when May wakes up after a particularly emotional night. She had drawn a picture of a boy from the local convenience store, someone she has a small crush on, and when her mother accidentally discovers this drawing, May feels intense embarrassment and humiliation. The next morning, May wakes up to find that she has transformed into a giant red panda overnight. She is shocked and terrified, and in a panic, she locks herself in the bathroom, unsure of what is happening to her body. May's mother Ming immediately understands what has happened, because this transformation is actually a hereditary trait that runs through the women of their family. Ming explains to May that this panda is connected to their ancestor Sun Yi, a woman who lived many generations ago and had a deep spiritual connection with red pandas. According to family history, during a time of war, Sun Yi prayed to the gods for the strength to protect her family and home, and in return, she was blessed, or some might say cursed, with the ability to transform into a giant red panda whenever she needed that protective power. Over generations, this ability was passed down to her female descendants, but instead of being seen as a gift, it came to be viewed as an inconvenient and even shameful trait that needed to be sealed away. Ming reveals that there is a ritual that can be performed to trap the panda spirit inside a special talisman, removing it from the person permanently. This ritual can only be performed during a red moon, which is a rare lunar event. Until then, May must learn to control her emotions in order to prevent herself from transforming into the panda in public, since the transformation is directly triggered by strong feelings such as excitement, anger, embarrassment, or fear. At first, May is horrified by her new ability and tries her best to hide it from everyone, including her friends. However, after an emotional outburst caused by her mother's overprotective behavior at school, May accidentally transforms into the panda in front of her entire class, and the resulting incident becomes a viral sensation, with photos and clips of the red panda girl spreading around the school. Surprisingly, instead of being mocked, May finds that many of her classmates actually find the panda adorable and exciting, and her friends Miriam, Priya, and Abby are incredibly supportive, helping her keep the secret while also encouraging her to embrace this new part of herself. As May spends more time as the panda, she begins to realize that she actually likes this version of herself. The panda allows her to be bigger, bolder, and more expressive, things she has never truly allowed herself to be under her mother's strict guidance. With the help of her friends, May starts practicing techniques to summon and control the panda transformation at will, using meditation and visualization of happy thoughts to suppress it when needed, and intentionally triggering it through emotional excitement when she wants to use it for fun. Around this time, May and her friends discover that their favorite boy band, For Town, is going on tour and will be performing a concert in Toronto. The girls become determined to attend this concert no matter what, even though tickets are extremely expensive, and May knows her mother would never approve of her going to such an event, especially one filled with loud music, large crowds, and what Ming considers inappropriate content for a young girl. To raise money for the concert tickets, May comes up with the idea of using her panda transformation to her advantage. She begins charging her classmates for hugs, photos, and performances as the giant red panda, and with the help of her friends, this turns into a surprisingly successful business. Word spreads quickly, and soon May becomes something of a local celebrity at school because of her panda alter ego. This success brings May a level of confidence and independence she has never experienced before, but it also means she is living a double life, hiding both her panda ability and her plans to attend the concert from her mother. As the story progresses, the date of the Red Moon ritual approaches, and May's mother and grandmother, along with several aunties who travel from out of town, begin preparing for the ceremony that will permanently remove May's panda spirit. May initially agrees to go through with the ritual, partly out of guilt, and partly because she has been conditioned her whole life to follow her mother's wishes without question. However, things take a dramatic turn when May discovers that the Red Moon ritual is scheduled for the exact same night as the four-town concert. This creates an enormous internal conflict for May, who now has to choose between honoring her family's traditions and expectations, or following her own desires and staying true to the new sense of identity she has discovered through her panda form and her friendship with Miriam, Priya, and Abby. The emotional climax of the film begins when May's mother discovers that May has been lying to her about the concert tickets and her plans for that night. This leads to a massive argument between May and Ning, during which years of built-up pressure, unspoken resentment, and miscommunication finally come to the surface. In a moment of extreme emotional intensity, Ming herself transforms into an enormous, much larger version of the red panda, revealing that her own panda spirit was never fully removed, and that she too has been suppressing a huge part of herself for her entire life due to pressure from her own mother. This transformation causes chaos, as the giant version of Ming's panda goes on a destructive path through the city, eventually heading toward the stadium where the four-town concert is taking place, where May and her friends had secretly gone despite everything. The situation escalates further when May's grandmother and aunties arrive and also transform into their own panda forms in an attempt to help control Ming and bring her back to her human form by trapping her spirit in the prepared talisman. During this chaotic climax, May is faced with the ultimate decision. She could allow her mother's spirit to be sealed away, following the family tradition exactly as planned, or she could try to reach out to her mother and help her confront and accept her own inner turmoil instead of suppressing it. May chooses the latter, bravely going into the spiritual realm to find her mother's inner child, a younger version of Ming who feels hurt, unheard, and pressured by her own mother's expectations. Through a heartfelt and emotional conversation, May helps this younger version of her mother understand that it is okay to be imperfect, to have flaws, and to be loved despite mistakes. This moment of connection allows Ming to finally let go of years of suppressed pain and anger, leading to a powerful reconciliation between May and her mother. Instead of completing the ritual to remove their panda spirits entirely, both May and Ming, along with the grandmother and aunties, choose to keep their panda forms as a part of who they are, recognizing that this ability is not a curse but simply another aspect of their identity that they can learn to control and embrace rather than fear or hide. In the aftermath of this emotional climax, the family returns home, and there is a clear shift in the relationship between May and her mother. Ming becomes more understanding and supportive of May's individuality, including her friendships, her interests in Four Town, and her desire to grow and change as she enters her teenage years. May, in turn, gains a deeper understanding of her mother as a person, not just as a parental figure, recognizing that Ming also went through similar struggles during her own youth. The film concludes with May continuing her life as a teenager who openly embraces both sides of herself, the responsible, family-oriented daughter and the expressive, panda-loving individual who enjoys spending time with her friends. The final scenes show May attending school, hanging out with Miriam, Priya, and Abby, and occasionally transforming into her panda form on purpose for fun, no longer feeling the need to hide or be ashamed of this part of her identity. The closing moments emphasize themes of self-acceptance, the importance of communication between parents and children, and the idea that growing up often means learning to balance who you are expected to be with who you truly are inside. Overall, the complete story of Turning Red is a heartfelt and emotionally rich coming-of-age tale that uses the fantastical element of a magical panda transformation to explore very real and relatable themes such as puberty, generational trauma, cultural expectations, friendship, and the complex, ever-evolving relationship between mothers and daughters. Sandra Oh, who voices May's mother Ming Lee, is one of the most well-established and respected actresses in the cast. She was born on July 20, 1971, in Nepean, a suburb of Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, to parents who had immigrated from South Korea. Growing up in a Korean immigrant household gave her a deep personal connection to many of the themes explored in Turning Red, particularly the dynamic between immigrant parents and their children who are raised in a different culture. From a young age, Sandra Oh showed a strong interest in performing arts, and she eventually trained at the National Theatre School of Canada, one of the country's most prestigious institutions for acting. Her early career included theatre work and Canadian television and film projects, but she gained international attention with her role in the 1994 film Double Happiness, which also explored themes of cultural identity and family expectations for a young Asian Canadian woman, a role that earned her significant critical praise early in her career. Over the following years, Sandra Oh continued to build a strong reputation through various film and television roles, eventually gaining widespread recognition for her performance in the 2004 film Sideways, which won major awards and brought her into the mainstream spotlight. However, it was her role as Dr. Christina Yang in the long-running medical drama Grey's Anatomy that made her a household name worldwide. She portrayed this character for 10 seasons, becoming one of the most beloved and iconic characters in television history, and her performance earned her multiple award nominations and wins, including a Golden Globe Award. After leaving Grey's Anatomy, Sandra Oh took on the lead role of Eve Polastri in the critically acclaimed spy thriller series Killing Eve, a role that earned her even more recognition, including making history as the first actress of Asian descent to win a Golden Globe Award for Best Actress in a television drama series. She also became the first person of Asian descent to host the Golden Globe Awards ceremony. Throughout her career, Sandra Oh has been known for choosing roles that challenge stereotypes and bring authentic representation to Asian characters in Western media, and her involvement in Turning Red as Ming Li was seen as a perfect fit given her real-life background and the emotional depth she has consistently brought to complex maternal and immigrant characters throughout her career. Rosalie Chang, who voices the lead character Mei Li, had a very different journey into the entertainment industry compared to her more experienced co-star. Rosalie is a Chinese-American actress who was relatively unknown before being cast in Turning Red, and this film served as her breakout role and one of her first major projects in the industry. She was discovered through a talent search conducted by Pixar specifically for the role of Mei, as the filmmakers wanted to find a young actress who could authentically capture the voice, energy, and emotional range of a 13-year-old girl going through significant personal changes. Rosalie's performance was praised for bringing a natural, youthful energy to the character, and her ability to convey both the comedic and emotional aspects of Mei's journey was seen as a major strength of the film. Being relatively new to the industry, Turning Red represented a huge opportunity for Rosalie Chang, placing her in the spotlight as the voice of one of Pixar's most personal and culturally significant protagonists. Following the success of the film, Rosalie has continued to be associated with the project through promotional appearances and interviews, where she has spoken about her own experiences growing up as a Chinese-American teenager and how relatable she found Mei's story to be, particularly the balancing act between cultural expectations at home and the typical experiences of an American teenager at school. Maitreyi Ramakrishnan, who voices Mei's friend Priya, has had one of the most notable rise-to-fame stories among the cast members. She is a Canadian actress of Sri Lankan Tamil descent, born and raised in Mississauga, Ontario, a city with a large South Asian community. Before her acting career began, Maitreyi was a regular high school student with no professional acting experience or training. Her path into the entertainment industry began in an unconventional way, as she responded to an open casting call posted on social media by a major streaming platform searching for an unknown actress to play the lead role in a new comedy series. Maitreyi auditioned by submitting a self-tape video, and despite having no prior acting background, she was eventually selected for the lead role of Devi Vishwakarma in the Netflix series Never Have I Ever, a coming-of-age comedy created by a well-known writer and producer. The show became extremely popular, and Maitreyi's performance as a first-generation Indian-American teenager dealing with grief, identity, and typical high school struggles received widespread praise, quickly turning her into a recognizable face in young adult entertainment. Her casting in Turning Red as Priya came shortly after her breakthrough with Never Have I Ever, and it further established her as a rising star known for portraying relatable, culturally diverse teenage characters. Maitreyi has often spoken about how unexpected her acting career has been, given that she had originally been interested in pursuing a career in healthcare or science before her sudden entry into show business. Ava Morse, who voices May's friend Miriam, is a young Canadian actress whose career has been primarily focused on voice acting and on-screen roles and projects aimed at younger audiences. Although she has not reached the same level of mainstream fame as some of her co-stars, she has been involved in various television and animated projects, building a steady career in the industry from a young age. Her role as Miriam in Turning Red gave her significant exposure due to the popularity of the film, and her portrayal of the tall, deep-voiced, loyal best friend character was well received by audiences, with many viewers praising the chemistry between the voice actors playing May's group of friends. Like many young performers in the industry, Ava Morse's career has been built through a combination of auditions, smaller roles, and gradual exposure to larger projects, with Turning Red standing out as one of the more significant credits in her filmography due to the widespread reach of a Pixar production. Hyen Park, who voices May's friend Abby, is another young actress for whom Turning Red represented a major and highly visible role early in her career. Abby's character, known for her small size but explosively energetic and intense personality, became a fan favorite due to the contrast between her appearance and her loud, fierce attitude, and Hyen Park's vocal performance played a big role in making this character memorable. As with several of the younger cast members, detailed information about her personal background and prior career history is not as widely documented compared to more established actors, but her involvement in a major Pixar film placed her in front of a massive global audience and contributed to growing recognition for her as a voice actress. Orion Lee, who voices May's father Gene Lee, is a British actor with a background primarily rooted in theatre and independent film work. He has been involved in various stage productions in the United Kingdom, building a career through classical and contemporary theatre roles before transitioning into film and television work. One of his more notable film roles prior to Turning Red was in the critically acclaimed independent film First Cow, released in 2019, which received significant praise from critics and helped raise his profile internationally. His portrayal of Gene Lee in Turning Red, a calm, gentle, and quietly supportive father figure, contrasted with the more intense personality of Ming, and Orion Lee's understated vocal performance was appreciated for adding a sense of balance and warmth to the family dynamic portrayed in the film. Like many actors with strong theater backgrounds, Orion Lee's approach to voice acting has been noted for its subtlety and emotional restraint, qualities that suited the character of Gene well within the overall tone of the movie. Together, this cast brought a mix of highly experienced performers like Sandra Oh and relatively newer talents like Rosalie Chang, Maitreyi Ramakrishnan, Ava Morse, and Hyen Park, combined with the understated theatrical experience of Orion Lee, creating a voice ensemble that many critics felt captured the authentic feel of a group of real teenage friends and their families, contributing significantly to the emotional impact and relatability of Turning Red as a whole. The making of Turning Red was a massive undertaking for Pixar Animation Studios, both creatively and financially. While exact studio budgets are often kept private and figures can vary depending on the source, Turning Red has been widely reported to have a production budget in the range of around $175 million, which places it among the more expensive animated films ever produced. This budget covered not just the animation itself, but also the years of research, character development, technical innovation, music production involving original songs, and the voice cast recording sessions. Because the film was eventually released directly on Disney Plus instead of in theaters, due to the pandemic situation at the time, there was no traditional box office return to measure against this budget, which made the film somewhat unique in terms of how its financial success was evaluated, with Disney instead focusing on subscriber engagement and streaming viewership numbers. In terms of the actual production process, Turning Red took several years to complete, as is typical for Pixar films, with development beginning long before the film's eventual release. Director Domi Sher worked closely with her team to develop the story based heavily on her own childhood experiences growing up as a Chinese-Canadian girl in Toronto during the early 2000s. A significant part of the production involved extensive research into Chinese-Canadian culture, Toronto's specific neighborhoods and architecture during that era, and even small details like the design of household items, food, and fashion that would have been common during that time period, all to make the setting feel authentic and lived in rather than generic. One of the biggest technical challenges during production was the design and animation of the giant red panda form. Pixar's animators had to create an incredibly detailed fur simulation system, since the red panda character had an enormous number of individual hair strands that needed to move realistically with every motion, transformation, and emotional shift. This fur technology was reportedly one of the most advanced and complex systems Pixar had developed up to that point, requiring new tools and rendering techniques to make sure the panda looked soft, fluffy, and expressive while still being efficient enough to animate across an entire feature film. A particularly interesting aspect of the production was how the voice recording sessions were handled for May and her three friends, Miriam, Priya, and Abby. Instead of recording each actor separately in isolation, which is a common practice in animation, the filmmakers chose to bring Rosalie Chang, Ava Morse, Maitreyi Ramakrishnan, and Hyen Park together for many of their recording sessions. This decision was made specifically to capture the natural chemistry, overlapping dialogue, and spontaneous reactions that happen when real teenage friends talk and joke around with each other. As a result, many of the funniest and most authentic-sounding moments in the film actually came from genuine laughter, banter, and improvisation between the young actresses during these group sessions, rather than from scripted lines performed alone in a booth. This group recording approach reportedly led to a lot of fun and light-hearted moments on set, as the young cast members would often break character laughing at each other's reactions, ad-lib jokes, or get the giggles during emotional or dramatic scenes, requiring multiple takes simply because they couldn't stop laughing. The energy and friendship that developed among the young actresses during these sessions is often credited as one of the reasons the friendship dynamic in the film feels so genuine and full of life, with audiences frequently praising how real the group felt compared to more traditionally scripted animated friend groups. Sandra Oh, being a much more experienced performer, also brought her own energy to the recording process. She has spoken in interviews about how personally connected she felt to the character of Ming, given her own background as the daughter of Korean immigrant parents, and this connection often led to deeply emotional recording sessions, particularly for scenes involving the conflict between Mei and Ming. At the same time, Sandra Oh's natural sense of humor and warmth reportedly made for a relaxed and enjoyable atmosphere during recording, with her often interacting playfully with the younger cast members and offering encouragement, given her position as the most experienced actor in the group. Domi Sher herself has talked about how much of the humor in the film came directly from her own life and the lives of people she grew up with, including exaggerated versions of real arguments, embarrassing moments, and quirky family traditions. Many of the smaller, funnier details in the film, such as May's overly dramatic imagination sequences, the exaggerated anime-inspired facial expressions, and the chaotic energy of the panda transformations, were inspired by anime and cartoons that Domi Sher loved as a teenager, and the animation team had a lot of fun experimenting with these stylized, exaggerated visual styles, which were somewhat different from the more realistic animation style typically associated with Pixar films. Another fun aspect of the production involved the creation of the fictional boy band Four Town and their songs, which were written by Billie Eilish and Phineas O'Connell. The team had to create music that felt like a believable, slightly cheesy early 2000s boy band sound, while also being catchy enough to work as genuinely enjoyable songs for audiences. There were reportedly a lot of light-hearted creative discussions about how to make the band members both a parody of classic boy band tropes and likable enough that audiences could understand why May and her friends were so obsessed with them, leading to a fun blend of humor and sincerity in how the band and its music were portrayed. Overall, the making of Turning Red involved a combination of significant financial investment, advanced animation technology, deeply personal storytelling from Domi Sher, and a uniquely collaborative and joyful recording process for the voice cast, especially the young actresses playing May's friend group, all of which contributed to both the emotional authenticity and the comedic charm that audiences enjoyed in the final film. Turning Red is deeply rooted in cultural and historical context, much of which comes directly from director Domi Sher's own background and experiences, making the film one of the more culturally specific projects in Pixar's history. The story is set in Toronto, Canada, specifically in the year 2002, and a great deal of attention was given to recreating the cultural atmosphere of that particular time and place. Toronto is known for being one of the most multicultural cities in the world, with a large and well-established Chinese-Canadian community, and the film reflects this by showing May's family running a Chinese temple dedicated to their ancestors, situated within a neighborhood that blends traditional Chinese architecture and customs with the everyday Canadian urban environment. This setting allowed the filmmakers to explore the experience of being part of an immigrant family living within a Western country, balancing the preservation of cultural traditions with the pressures and influences of growing up in a different cultural environment than one's parents or grandparents. A central cultural element of the film is the concept of ancestor worship and family legacy, which is shown through May's family temple, dedicated to their ancestor Sun Yi. This reflects real cultural practices found in Chinese tradition, where family temples and shrines are used to honor and remember ancestors, often involving rituals, offerings, and the telling of family history to younger generations. The film uses this practice as a foundation for its fantastical elements, weaving the red panda transformation into a larger narrative about lineage, inherited traits, and the responsibilities that come with family history. This blending of real cultural practices with fictional, magical elements is a technique often used in storytelling to make fantastical elements feel grounded and meaningful within a specific cultural framework. The historical backstory involving Sun Yi, the ancestor who first received the ability to transform into a red panda, is tied to a fictional depiction of a turbulent period in history when families had to protect themselves during times of war and conflict. While the specific historical event is fictionalized for the purposes of the story, it reflects a common theme found in many cultures, where extraordinary abilities or traditions are said to have originated from a moment of crisis, often involving a deal or blessing from spiritual forces in exchange for protection. This kind of origin story is used in the film to explain why the women in May's family carry this trait, and it also sets up the central conflict of the movie, where something that was originally meant to be a gift and a source of strength becomes viewed over generations as a burden or even a source of shame, something to be hidden rather than celebrated. Another major cultural aspect of the film is its exploration of generational differences within immigrant families, particularly the tension between preserving cultural values and traditions versus adapting to the cultural norms of the country where the family now lives. May's mother represents a generation that places extremely high value on respect, discipline, academic and personal achievement, and maintaining a certain image within the family and community. May, on the other hand, represents a younger generation that is more influenced by Western pop culture, individual expression, and personal identity, as shown through her love for boy bands, her group of diverse friends, and her desire for independence. This generational and cultural tension is something that many people from immigrant families, regardless of their specific cultural background, can relate to, which is part of why the film resonated with such a wide audience despite its specific cultural setting. The film is also historically significant in terms of representation within mainstream animated cinema. Turning Red was one of the first major animated films from a large studio to center its story almost entirely around the experiences of an Asian Canadian family, with a predominantly Asian voice cast playing the main characters. This was seen as an important step in the broader movement within the entertainment industry toward more diverse and authentic representation, particularly for East Asian and Southeast Asian communities, who have historically been underrepresented or stereotyped in Western animation and film. In addition to its cultural exploration of family and heritage, the film is also historically rooted in early 2000s pop culture, particularly through its depiction of boy band fandom. During this era, boy bands were an enormous part of youth culture, especially among teenage girls, with intense fan followings, posters, merchandise, and concerts being a major part of many young people's social lives. The fictional band Four Town in the film is a clear homage to this era of music, capturing the look, sound, and fan culture associated with real boy bands from that time period. This historical element adds a layer of nostalgia for adult viewers who grew up during that era, while also helping younger audiences understand the cultural phenomenon of boy band fandom that was such a defining part of that time. The film also touches on the historical and cultural taboos surrounding discussions of puberty, particularly menstruation, within many families and cultures. The metaphor of the red panda transformation, which begins suddenly and is tied to physical and emotional changes, has been widely interpreted as a representation of the experience of getting one's first period, a topic that is often treated as private, embarrassing, or even shameful in many cultural contexts, including many East Asian cultures where such topics are traditionally not openly discussed, especially between mothers and daughters in front of others. By addressing this topic through a fantastical metaphor, the film opened up conversations about a subject that is historically considered taboo in mainstream family entertainment, marking a notable shift in how animated films aimed at younger audiences approach topics related to growing up and the female body. Visually and stylistically, the film also reflects a historical influence from Japanese anime and manga, which became increasingly popular and influential in Western animation throughout the late 20th and early 21st centuries. The exaggerated facial expressions, dynamic action sequences, and stylized character designs seen in Turning Red reflect this broader cultural exchange between Eastern and Western animation styles, showing how anime aesthetics have become deeply integrated into mainstream Western animated films over time. Overall, Turning Red serves as both a personal cultural narrative and a broader historical reflection of immigrant family dynamics, generational change, early 2000s youth culture, and shifting attitudes toward representation and storytelling in mainstream animation. The film manages to weave together specific cultural traditions, historical context, and universal themes about growing up, making it a significant work both culturally and historically within the landscape of modern animated cinema. Turning Red is filled with layers of irony, both within its story and in the broader context of how the film was made, released, and received, and exploring these ironic elements adds an interesting dimension to understanding the film on a deeper level. One of the most central ironies of the film lies in the very nature of the panda transformation itself. According to the family history shown in the movie, the ability to transform into a giant red panda originally came from an ancestor named Sunyi, who specifically prayed for this power in order to protect her family during a dangerous and difficult time. In other words, the panda was meant to be a symbol of strength, protection, and love for one's family. However, over the generations, this same gift became something the family viewed as shameful, dangerous, and embarrassing, something to be hidden from the world and eventually removed entirely through a ritual. The irony here is striking, as something that was originally meant to be a source of empowerment and protection slowly transformed, through generations of fear and social pressure, into something the family saw as a curse that needed to be eliminated, completely reversing its original purpose. Another major irony in the film revolves around Ming's character and her motivations. Throughout the movie, Ming is shown as extremely controlling, constantly trying to manage every aspect of May's life in order to protect her from embarrassment, social judgment, and emotional turmoil. Ming's entire approach to parenting seems to be built around preventing May from experiencing the kind of pain and shame that Ming herself experienced as a child. However, the ironic twist is that by trying so hard to protect May from this pain through strict control and suppression, Ming ends up recreating the exact same cycle of suppression and emotional disconnect that caused her own pain in the first place. In trying to prevent May from going through what she went through, Ming almost forces May into the very same situation, showing how attempts to break a cycle can sometimes end up reinforcing it instead. There is also a powerful irony in the moment when Ming herself transforms into a panda during the climax of the film. For the entire movie, Ming is presented as the most composed, controlled, and emotionally restrained character, someone who seems to have everything under control and who disapproves of May's emotional outbursts and lack of self-control. Yet when Ming finally loses control of her own emotions, her panda form turns out to be enormous, far larger and more powerful than May's, revealing that Ming has actually been suppressing an even greater amount of emotion and inner turmoil than May ever had. The character who seemed the most in control, on the surface turns out to have been hiding the deepest and most intense emotional struggles underneath, which is a deeply ironic revelation given how the character was portrayed throughout the rest of the film. Another interesting irony involves the way May's panda form is treated by the people around her once it becomes public. May initially views her transformation as something humiliating and monstrous, fearing that it will ruin her reputation and make her an outcast at school. Ironically, the exact opposite happens, as her classmates find the giant red panda adorable and exciting, and instead of being mocked or rejected, May becomes extremely popular because of the very things she was most ashamed of. This irony is further deepened when May begins charging her classmates money to interact with her panda form, turning what was supposed to be a shameful secret into a profitable and socially rewarding experience, completely reversing her initial fears. There is also irony in the timing and setting of the Red Moon ritual itself. The ritual, which is meant to free the women of the family from the burden of the panda spirit, is scheduled for the same night as the four-town concert, an event that represents excitement, freedom, friendship, and self-expression for May. The ritual, framed by the family as a kind of liberation, actually represents a loss of a part of oneself, while the concert, framed by Ming as something inappropriate and potentially harmful, ends up being the setting where real emotional healing and connection between May and her mother eventually take place. The event meant to symbolize freedom through removal of an essential part of identity is contrasted ironically with an event symbolizing freedom through self-expression and emotional release. On a broader level, there is also irony in the way the film handles topics related to puberty and growing up. The film, produced by Disney and Pixar, companies historically associated with very sanitized, conflict-light, and often overly cautious portrayals of childhood and family life, became one of the more groundbreaking mainstream animated films to address topics like menstruation, raging hormones, and intense emotional outbursts in a relatively direct way through metaphor. This represents an ironic shift for a studio long known for avoiding such topics, suddenly becoming a platform for normalizing conversations that have traditionally been considered taboo, especially within certain cultural contexts similar to the one portrayed in the film. There is also a layer of irony related to the film's release. The story heavily features the excitement and importance of attending a live concert, with the entire emotional climax of the film building toward May and her friends getting to experience a massive, crowded, energetic stadium concert in person. Ironically, the film itself was released during a time when live concerts, large gatherings, and even traditional movie theater experiences were heavily restricted due to the global pandemic, meaning that many viewers watched a story celebrating the joy of large group gatherings and live performances while sitting alone at home, unable to experience anything similar themselves at that time. Finally, there is an ironic contrast in casting when it comes to Sandra Oh's role as Ming. Sandra Oh has spent much of her career portraying strong, independent, sometimes emotionally guarded or even dangerous characters, such as a high-functioning surgeon dealing with personal trauma in a medical drama, or a complex assassin in a spy thriller. In Turning Red, she instead portrays a more traditional, overprotective mother figure, a role that initially seems like a departure from her usual characters. However, by the end of the film, Ming is revealed to be just as emotionally complex, repressed, and internally powerful as many of Sandra Oh's previous characters, showing that even in a seemingly ordinary mother role, there is an underlying intensity and depth that connects to the type of characters she has portrayed throughout her career, creating an ironic continuity beneath what initially appears to be a very different kind of role for her. Turning Red begins by introducing viewers to the world of Maylin, May Lee, a 13-year-old girl living in Toronto, Canada, in the year 2002. From the very first moments of the film, May is shown walking confidently through her neighborhood, narrating her own life with a sense of pride and self-assuredness that immediately establishes her personality. She describes herself as someone who has everything figured out, balancing her responsibilities as the dedicated daughter of her parents, who run a family temple honoring their ancestor Sun Yi, with her life as a normal teenager who attends school, hangs out with friends, and enjoys typical early 2000s pop culture. The film spends time establishing May's home life, showing her close relationship with her father Jean, who is calm, quiet, and supportive, often staying in the background while still clearly loving and caring for his daughter. In contrast, May's mother Ming is shown to be intensely involved in every aspect of May's life, helping her with homework, monitoring her schedule, and expecting May to assist with daily tasks at the temple, including greeting visitors and performing small rituals. Ming's love for May is clear, but it is also shown to be overwhelming, as Ming frequently checks on May in ways that embarrass her, such as showing up unannounced at her school. At school, May is shown interacting with her three best friends, Miriam, Priya, and Abby, each with distinct personalities. Miriam is tall, easygoing, and supportive. Priya has a calm, deadpan sense of humor, and Abby is small but extremely intense and energetic. Together, the four girls share an obsession with a fictional boy band called Four Town, often discussing their favorite members, learning dance routines, and dreaming about what it would be like to see them perform live. This friendship is portrayed as one of the most important and joyful parts of May's life, providing a space where she can be silly, loud, and fully herself, in contrast to the more restrained version of herself she presents at home. The first major turning point occurs after an embarrassing incident involving a boy from a local convenience store, whom May has a small crush on. After May accidentally creates a drawing expressing her feelings for this boy, her mother discovers it, and, misunderstanding the situation, confronts the boy directly at his workplace, causing May intense humiliation in front of her friends and classmates. That night, May goes to bed overwhelmed with embarrassment, anger, and emotional turmoil, and the next morning, she wakes up to find that she has transformed into a giant red panda. In a panic, May locks herself in the bathroom, terrified of what has happened to her body. Ming quickly realizes what is going on and reveals to May the long-hidden truth about their family's history. She explains that this transformation is connected to an ancestor named Sun Yi, who lived many generations ago and prayed for the strength to protect her family during a time of great danger. As a result, Sun Yi was given the ability to transform into a giant red panda whenever she needed that protective power. Over time, this ability was passed down through the women in the family, but rather than being celebrated, it became something the family viewed as embarrassing and dangerous, something that needed to be controlled and eventually removed entirely. Ming explains that there is a special ritual that can permanently seal away the panda spirit, but it can only be performed during a rare astronomical event known as a red moon. Until then, May is told she must avoid strong emotions in order to prevent further transformations, a task that proves to be extremely difficult given her age and the emotional roller coaster of being a teenager. Despite efforts to keep the secret hidden, May eventually transforms into the panda again at school after another emotional outburst, this time in front of her entire class. Rather than being horrified, however, her classmates react with excitement and fascination, finding the giant red panda incredibly cute and exciting. Photos and videos of the incident spread quickly throughout the school, and instead of becoming an outcast, May unexpectedly becomes something of a celebrity. With the encouragement and support of Miriam, Priya, and Abby, May begins learning how to control her transformations. The girls help her practice calming techniques, focusing on positive memories and feelings to suppress the panda when needed, while also helping her learn how to intentionally trigger the transformation when she wants to use it. During this time, May begins to genuinely enjoy being the panda, finding that it gives her a sense of freedom, confidence, and uniqueness that she has never experienced before. As May's popularity grows, she and her friends come up with the idea of using her panda form to make money, allowing classmates to pay for hugs, photos, and even short performances. This venture becomes surprisingly successful, and the girls quickly realize that they could use this money to buy tickets to the highly anticipated four-town concert, which is coming to Toronto. The concert becomes the central goal for the group, representing not just a fun event, but also a major milestone in their friendship and shared excitement about growing up. While May continues to live this exciting double life, tension at home begins to grow. Ming, sensing that May is hiding something, becomes increasingly anxious and controlling, while also beginning preparations for the Red Moon ritual with the help of May's grandmother and several aunties, who travel from out of town specifically for this purpose. The arrival of the extended family adds another layer to the story, as it becomes clear that every woman in the family has gone through this same experience, each dealing with their own version of the panda spirit and the pressure to suppress it. The central conflict reaches its peak when May discovers that the date of the Red Moon ritual falls on the exact same night as the four-town concert. Faced with this impossible situation, May initially tries to find a way to attend both events, but things quickly spiral out of control. During a moment of extreme stress and emotional conflict, Ming discovers that May has been lying to her about her plans, leading to a massive confrontation between mother and daughter. Years of built-up pressure, unspoken feelings, and miscommunication finally explode, resulting in Ming herself transforming into an enormous red panda, far larger and more powerful than May's, revealing that Ming has spent her entire life suppressing her own panda spirit. This transformation triggers widespread chaos, as Ming's massive panda form rampages through the city, eventually heading toward the stadium where the four-town concert is taking place, where May and her friends had secretly gone despite everything. May's grandmother and aunties arrive at the scene, also transforming into their own panda forms, working together to try to contain Ming and prepare to seal her spirit away using the ritual talisman. In the climactic sequence, May is faced with a critical decision. She could allow the ritual to proceed, sealing away her mother's panda spirit permanently as originally planned, or she could try to help her mother in a different way. Choosing the latter, May enters a deeper emotional and spiritual realm, where she encounters a younger version of her mother, a child who feels hurt, unheard, and overwhelmed by the expectations placed on her by her own mother. Through a heartfelt and emotional exchange, May comforts this younger version of Ming, helping her understand that she does not need to be perfect to be loved. This moment of connection allows Ming to finally release years of suppressed pain and emotional weight, leading to a powerful reconciliation between May and her mother. Rather than completing the ritual to remove their panda spirits entirely, the family makes the collective decision to keep their panda forms, recognizing them as meaningful parts of who they are rather than something shameful to be hidden away. In the aftermath, the relationship between May and Ming visibly changes. Ming becomes more open, supportive, and willing to let May express herself, including her interests, friendships, and individuality, while May gains a deeper understanding of her mother as a person who has her own history, struggles, and emotions. The film closes with scenes showing May continuing her life as a teenager who fully embraces both sides of herself, attending school, spending time with her friends, and occasionally transforming into her panda form for fun, no longer feeling the need to hide or suppress any part of who she is. Throughout this journey, the story weaves together themes of family legacy, generational trauma, cultural identity, friendship, and the often messy and emotional process of growing up, using the fantastical concept of the panda transformation as a powerful metaphor for the physical and emotional changes that come with adolescence, as well as the complicated relationships that can exist between parents and children as they each navigate their own struggles with identity, expectation, and acceptance.